My husband went hiking and camping with his female best friend. His female best friend picked some mushrooms to make soup, but I stopped him from drinking it. Later, his female best friend died from mushroom poisoning. He held me in his arms, kissed me, and thanked me for saving his life, still shaken by what had happened, yet he poisoned me at the happiest moment of my pregnancy. Ting was carrying my child when she went mushroom picking. If you hadn't interfered, she would still be alive. You and your child will pay for her life. Clutching my stomach in agony, I collapsed. I closed my eyes filled with regret and resentment. I opened my eyes again and saw the soup his female friend was handing to me. I won't stand in your way anymore. I had reincarnated back to the day when my husband Ji Mingi and our group went hiking and camping. Honey, just hang in there a little longer. We're almost there. Hearing Ji Mingi's voice, I couldn't help but tremble. And only by feeling the stifling air around me did I truly sense the reality of being reborn. I've never been one for exercise. Hiking feels like pure torture to me. Ji Mingi enjoys things like working out and sea fishing, but he doesn't go hiking or camping all that often. To fit into my husband's social circle, I forced myself to tag along. In our previous life, his sworn sister Sun Ting picked mushrooms to make soup. I stopped him from drinking it, fearing it might be poisonous. After we came down the mountain, he got news that his friends had been poisoned. Sun Ting, who ate the most, didn't make it despite emergency treatment. He held me tightly, still shaken, and thanked me for persuading him. It saved his life. From then on, he treated me even better. The moment I found out I was pregnant, I felt like the luckiest person in the world. I couldn't wait to share the news with Ji Mingi, imagining how thrilled he would be. When I got home and saw him smiling as he brought me a bowl of soup, I drank it without a second thought. That night when the poison took effect, I begged him to save me and our unborn child. He snarled at me viciously. If you hadn't stopped me, Ting would never have died. She was carrying my child when she died. All my effort to get you pregnant wasn't in vain. You and your child will pay for her life with yours. After we got married, he said childbirth is brutal for women and he couldn't bear to see me suffer. He sounded so genuine. I've always wanted kids myself, but hearing him say that, I agreed to be child-free with him. Recently he suddenly said he wants children. I thought he'd had a change of heart. Little did I know he was going for the cruelest blow. He struck me down at the happiest moment of my life. At that thought, I spoke coldly. Where are we on the climb now? Seeing how serious my question was, Ji Mingi pulled out a map to check. We're about 5 kilometers away. After glancing at the time, I gave up on the idea of going down alone. It was too late to turn back. Ji Mingi reached out as if to take my backpack after he finished speaking. Sun Ting shot him a glare and cut him off. Oh, so you're already doting on her. Huh, we all hiked up this mountain together, and you only care about your wife, not your buddies. Not to be rude, but if your wife isn't cut out for hiking, why drag her along to suffer? The people around them burst into teasing laughter. Brother Ji is with us. What's there for your wife to worry about? Then they glanced at Sun Ting. Sis, don't treat Ting like a woman, she's one of the guys. Just like the rest of us brothers. Sun Ting immediately punched the guy. Oh, what great buddies indeed, carrying your bro's baby in your belly now. In my past life, her constant sarcastic remarks, both overt and subtle, made me too afraid to show any weakness. I can't be bothered with all that right now. I just took off my backpack and tossed it into Ji Mingi's arms. He's still my husband for now, so what's wrong with bossing him around? Anyway, I've made up my mind. After we get down this mountain, I'll either be widowed or divorced. Everyone fell silent when they saw I was genuinely angry. Sun Ting followed behind, huffing and puffing with rage. They had only ever gone charter fishing or camped in developed tourist areas before. This time we're heading deep into the wilderness where there's no signal. I thought they were experienced and professional. Turns out they just threw it together without any preparation. I could feel the air getting more humid. I started walking faster. Others also sensed the shift in the weather. Looks like it's about to rain. Sun Ting brushed it off. No worries, I brought raincoats. Let's not wander around. We should find a spot to set up the tent. Everyone else agreed, and Ji Mingi called me over to help. I glanced at the dark, cloud-filled sky and snorted coldly. Are you sure you can pitch the tent before it rains? I'm going to find somewhere else to take cover. With that, I took back my backpack and prepared to keep moving forward. Show you, Ji Mingi tried to call out to me, but Sun Ting held him back. Brother Ji, it's about to rain. We should hurry and set up the tent first. I think sister-in-law is upset with me. Someone who's usually so carefree around them was now saying this with teary eyes, looking utterly pitiful. They immediately felt protective and sympathetic toward her. "Sister-in-law, please come with us." "Hey, sis-in-law, if you can't help, at least don't make things worse." Ji Mingyi's face fell with embarrassment after hearing that. With a dark expression, he said irritably, "Just leave her be. If words won't get through to her, let experience teach her a lesson. She'll come running back once she's soaked through." Sun Tingting seemed pleased with their attitude and shot me a look, saying, "Once we've set up the tent, you'll be begging us for help." I'm absolutely speechless. These amateurs are utterly useless. In my previous life, I listened to them and tried to pitch tents here. Not a single one of them could set it up properly even when the storm hit, soaked to the bone. I finally managed to put up a tent using the tutorial I'd learned before coming up the mountain. My little tent can't fit that many people. They hid in my tent and ordered me to keep setting up the rest. Later, the tent couldn't hold up against the heavy rain and started leaking, and they kept blaming me for the poorly pitched tent. I had to venture out in the rain to find shelter. After returning, I developed pneumonia and was hospitalized for a long time. This time I've got to get out of here quick. Let's see who you'll blame when I'm gone. Following my memory, I found a shelter where I took refuge from the rain in my past life. Calling it a shelter is a stretch. It's really just a rundown little hut, but it did shield us from the sudden downpour. So I stayed here with peace of mind, waiting for the storm to pass. This time, unlike the wretchedness of my previous life, I laid out my sleeping bag and replenished my energy with water and food. Soon after, a bolt of lightning split the sky. With rolling thunder and a downpour of rain, I stretched and sighed. This kind of weather is truly sleep-inducing. I drifted off into a drowsy slumber, soon woken again by the commotion outside the door. I craned my neck to get a better look, could barely suppress the grin on my face. Well, if it isn't my nearly departed husband and his entourage. They were so drenched you wouldn't recognize them if they were your own mother. Their raincoats were now in tatters, and Ji Mingyi even used a sleeping bag to shield both himself and Sun Tingting from the rain. The group pushed the door open and stumbled in, looking utterly disheveled, completely unaware of my presence in the corner. Once inside, they busied themselves unpacking their gear, with Ji Mingyi thoughtfully pulling out a towel to dry Sun Tingting's hair. Sun Tingting began scolding a friend nearby for moving too slowly and holding everyone up. The friend then complained that she hadn't brought enough supplies. And just as the group was busy blaming each other, they finally noticed me occupying the best spot. Sun Tingting immediately pointed at me angrily and said, "Zhou Yu, how could you? You found shelter from the rain and didn't even call us, and here we were, worried sick about you. Did any of you even come looking for me, did you?" I turned to Ji Mingyi and said, "What about you? Did you even look for me? Aren't we married? Weren't you worried I might get lost out here alone?" The two of them were instantly speechless, seeing them put on the spot. The others tried to smooth things over. "We were just about to finish setting up the tents and come look for you." "Sis, don't be angry. The lesson from my past life is clear. If you yield an inch, they'll take a mile." Watching them shift the blame onto me, I raised an eyebrow and retorted sarcastically, "So, have you set up your tents yet? Weren't you all waiting for me to come begging?" Ji Mingyi put his things down with displeasure. "Tingting is right. You're being petty. It was just a joke among friends. Was that really necessary?" Sun Tingting crossed her arms. "This place isn't yours either. We found it together. There's no need for your passive-aggressive remarks." The others were giving me hostile looks. It was completely dark by now, and the temperature difference between day and night in the mountains was significant. They were all soaked and shivering uncontrollably. Some people had already started changing into spare clothes in the corner, perhaps from rushing. Sun Tingting wasn't carrying her backpack when Ji Mingyi brought her over with his arm around her. It must have been left behind at the campsite. Her face was wet with rain, and her long hair was still dripping. She swayed unsteadily, looking utterly pitiful. A flicker of pity crossed Ji Mingyi's eyes as he glanced at me curled up in the sleeping bag. He said in a low voice, "You have some clothes in your bag, right? Lend them and the sleeping bag to Tingting." I ignored their expectant, approving gazes, astonished by their sheer audacity. Ji Mingyi's eyes darted evasively. "You could sleep with me. The nerve of them. Didn't you already give your sleeping bag to Sun Tingting for the rain? I can't be bothered to argue with you. No spare clothes, no sleeping bag to lend." The group was completely exhausted from the early morning until now, with no energy left to banter with me. Seeing how firm I was, a few of them tried squeezing into the sleeping bags. There was one left, and Ji Mingyi offered it to Sun Tingting. then he lent his own clothes to her as well. He took off his jacket, and fortunately, his inner clothes weren't too wet. Fuming, he ignored me and wrapped himself in a blanket before falling asleep. Early the next morning, we prepared to descend the mountain. Unlike my refreshed state, several of them were feeling under the weather after getting caught in the rain. Ji Mingyi's voice also sounded a bit hoarse. This prompted Tingting's son to shower him with concerned inquiries, as if deliberately trying to provoke me. He responded to Tingting's son with unusual warmth. I no longer bothered to conceal the disdain in my eyes. Waking up early, everyone was starving, our provisions were insufficient, and most of the food was in Tingting's son's backpack. Since she didn't bring her backpack, we had to make do with what we had. Luckily, we at least had the stove and small pot. Sun Tingting promised with full confidence that she would make sure everyone got something to eat. Good thing I still had 2 pieces of compressed biscuit. I wouldn't dare eat anything she cooked. Soon after, Sun Tingting proudly called out to everyone, "Alright, come and try my cooking." I glanced at the soup she handed to Ji Mingyi. A cold smirk formed in my mind. Isn't this the same poisonous mushroom soup from my past life? I watched as Ji Mingyi took the soup. With a soft smile, he asked affectionately, "Where did you pick these mushrooms?" Sun Tingting sat close to him and served herself a bowl as well. "I found them in the woods nearby." "What, are you scared?" Noticing everyone seemed hesitant to speak, she chuckled. "Don't worry, I've been mushroom foraging before. The brightly colored ones that change color when cut are poisonous, but these are just ordinary mushrooms." After easing everyone's concerns, she began serving the mushroom soup to each person. There was still some left in the pot, so I quickly mentioned that I had already eaten. Seeing that I was being considerate, she didn't press further and instead served another bowl for herself and Ji Mingyi, saying, "Brother Ji, have some more hot soup, it'll help you recover faster from your cold." He remarked with veiled sarcasm, "The soup is delicious, truly, time reveals a person's heart. It's in times of crisis that you see someone's true intentions." Tingting's son's eyes instantly shimmered with emotion, her lips curling into an irrepressible smile. The others exchanged knowing, suggestive glances at the two of them, yet I could only watch as she and Mingyi Ji sipped their mushroom soup, one mouthful after another. If it's that good, have some more." Once we're all set, we'll start heading down the mountain. The descent was tough, especially after the heavy rain left the path muddy and strewn with fallen trees blocking the way. Faced with this, the group was divided. The original route was steeper but would take less time. The other path is flatter, but it's twice as long. In my previous life, I was the one who got drenched the most and fell the sickest, while almost everyone else managed to tough it out. So they all chose the relatively safer, flatter road. This time around, Sun Tingting, exhausted from a long day yesterday, just wanted to get down the mountain early, thinking the rain had stopped and it was no big deal. She dragged Ji Mingyi to turn back the way they came. "Then you guys go back the way we came. I'll take the other path myself." Ji Mingyi thought I was just being stubborn. "Zhou Yu, now is not the time for your tantrums. Can't you be more sensible? That path is way too steep, who knows what's out there." "I'm not taking that route." "No way." One of the guys, hearing what I said, chimed in, "Brother Ji, Zhangzhen and I will stick with the missus. We'll meet up at Broken Stone Cliff later." Broken Stone Cliff is where 2 paths converge, merging into a single trail leading down the mountain. Our journey went surprisingly smoothly, probably because I wasn't slowing the group down with post-illness weakness. We actually arrived earlier than we did in my previous life. When we arrived, we didn't see Ji Mingyi and the others. Looks like they've run into trouble after all. I was going to head straight down, but these two insisted on waiting for them, and honestly, I was running on empty, had no choice but to sit down and rest. Zhangzhen suddenly stood up and asked alertly, "Did you guys hear that?" We immediately strained our ears to listen. Sure enough, faint sobbing echoed from nearby, and upon closer listening, we confirmed it was coming from the downhill path Ji Mingyi had chosen. We followed the sound and after walking some distance, finally spotted a figure. Sun Tingting had collapsed on the ground, wailing uncontrollably. The remaining people frantically dug through the soil nearby. Upon closer look, they realized Ji Mingyi was buried beneath the dirt. It turned out they had encountered numerous rockfalls along the way, leaving them both startled and terrified. The others had tried several times to turn back and take the route we had chosen, but Sun Tingting and Ji Mingyi talked them out of it. They were already halfway there, and who knew if the path ahead was clear? Dragging your sick body back and forth just isn't worth it. Just as we were stumbling our way toward Broken Stone Cliff, A minor landslide suddenly occurred. Ji Mingi shoved Sun Tingting out of the way, only to be buried himself. Fortunately, his upper body wasn't buried too deep. A few people scrambled over and saw most of his body was still above ground, so they tried to pull him out, but the moment they tugged, he cried out in pain. His foot was trapped tightly beneath several large rocks wedged in a depression, leaving him completely immobilized. I really couldn't just stand by indifferently. So I stepped forward several times to try and help pull him free. All he got in return was his own agonized wailing. Just as I tried to step forward, someone finally held me back. Ji Mingi gasped for breath and asked, "Where's Tingting? Is she okay?" Only then did we notice the various cuts and bruises on Sun Tingting's body. The ankle was already swollen and deformed, looking absolutely horrifying. Zhongzhen couldn't bear to watch any longer. "Forget about others right now. This place is too dangerous, it could collapse at any moment. I think I'm running a fever and don't have the strength to go down the mountain. Those who still have some energy left should head down first to get help." His suggestion was met with everyone's agreement, but when we counted, including me, only 3 of us were still able to keep going. Seeing that we were about to leave, Sun Tingting grabbed someone by the arm, tears streaming down her face like raindrops on pear blossoms. "I don't want to stay in this godforsaken place, take me with you, please." The man clearly looked troubled, not wanting to waste any more time. I took a deep breath. "Sun Tingting, look at your foot, can you even walk? By the time you make it down the mountain, you'll have ruined it completely." The others began to chime in, trying to persuade her as well. Seeing everyone's reaction and the dark clouds gathering overhead, Tingting's son suddenly snapped. "I told you I didn't want to stay in this godforsaken place. Are you all deaf? If I can't walk, can't one of you 3 carry me down? It's about to pour, and I've got open wounds all over. I can't get drenched. I must have been cursed for 8 lifetimes to end up hiking with you useless lot. Look what you've done to my leg." That outburst really shattered her image in everyone's eyes. Even Ji Mingi, lying face down in the dirt pile, furrowed his brow. "I can't carry you down. If you want to go down the mountain, you'll have to do it yourself." The other 2 were so afraid she'd latch onto their backpacks that they took off without a second thought. It had been a full hour by the time we reached an area with signal. Exhausted and gasping for air, we collapsed on the ground, refusing to take another step as we waited for rescue. When the rescue team arrived, one group escorted us down the mountain while another went up to save the remaining people. We sat in the rescue vehicle at the base of the mountain, where medical personnel checked on us and confirmed we were unharmed. They were brought down one after another. There was still no sign of Tingting's son and Mingi Ji. Zhenzhong filled us in on what happened. It turned out that after we left, Tingting's son had an emotional breakdown. Ji Mingi tried to console her, but she responded with harsh words that nearly caused a complete fallout between them. When rescue arrived, they carried Sun Tingting down the mountain on a stretcher, while Zhongzhen and the others, having regained some strength after resting, managed to walk down on their own a bit faster. "Sis, don't overthink it. From what I can tell, those 2 have had a nasty falling out. Your husband Ji deserves to live his life in peace." I scoffed coldly. "You're quick to call me sis when you need something, but don't think I'm oblivious. You've never truly respected me. I've seen through it all now. Our family matters are none of your concern." Back then, I was completely smitten by Ji Mingi's handsome face and well-defined abs. After we got married, he was always hanging out with his bros. I thought he was just being a loyal friend, but turns out one of them was a woman. My parents are quite traditional and have always pushed the ideal wife and mother narrative on me. It made me feel insecure around him, but looking back, I come from a much better family background. And I've already worked my way up to a managerial position at a young age. What do I even have to feel inferior about? Despite all the help he's given his so-called friends over the years, their contempt meant he was never truly accepted by them. How pathetic of me to waste my time on these worthless scoundrels. By the time the 2 of them were brought down the mountain, Ji Mingi's legs were stained crimson, caked with mud and grit. I went along to the hospital as a family member. Those people thought everything would be fine once they reached the hospital and waited for treatment. Little did they know the mushroom soup they'd consumed was starting to take effect. One by one, they began vomiting violently. After being diagnosed with mushroom poisoning, a stomach pump in the ER should take care of it. What about me? Sun Tingting and Ji Mingi, who drank the most, are now experiencing abdominal pain and are in more critical condition. Since almost no one here forages for mushrooms, our hospital isn't well versed in treating such cases. The doctor said hesitantly, "Both patients are in critical condition, but we only have one dose of antidote. We'll administer it to the male patient first since his condition is more severe. The female patient will have to wait until we can get more medication." His words left everyone speechless. On the way to the hospital, it was clear they were giving each other the cold shoulder. Just as Zhongzhen had said, I glanced over at Sun Tingting. She was sobbing softly, complaining about how much pain she was in. It was truly heartbreaking to see. My eyes darted. "Honey, look at Tingting. She seems to be in a bad way. What should we do?" "Do only the more critical cases get priority for medication, doctor," the medical staff explained while treating. "That's the general rule, but don't worry, the medicine will be here soon, and we're already providing initial care." A cry of pain came from Sun Tingting's side as the doctor applied a cast to her foot. As the fine sweat on her forehead began to subside, she lifted her gaze to meet Ji Mingyi's eyes. Tears welled up in her eyes, shimmering on the brink of falling. She must have been genuinely terrified. "Brother Ji, I was just so frightened up on the mountain that I said things I didn't mean. Please don't take it to heart. Could you let me use that medicine first?" The doctor said more will be available soon anyway. "That's exactly what I had in mind." Ji Mingyi looked at me with a troubled expression and said, "I have no problem with it, but I am Zhou Yu's husband after all. She probably wouldn't agree to this. They really are such good buddies, always pushing everything onto me. I'm not going to be the bad guy here, honey. Tingting hasn't been feeling well lately, just the other day. She was planning to go to the hospital, don't you remember? Maybe we should let her have it." "Don't be so petty. Whenever I stand up for my own rights, he calls me petty." Now the tables have turned, and I'm curious to see just how generous he can be. Ji Mingyi was left speechless by my words. His face flushed crimson, whether from pain or anger, it was hard to tell. The doctor didn't waste any time upon hearing this and immediately pulled up Sun Tingting's test results on the computer. The doctor walked over to Sun Tingting with a complicated expression, whispered a few words to her, and after a moment of stunned silence, she replied softly. The emergency room was far too noisy. No one could make out what they were saying. A faint smile tugged at the corner of my lips. They must have noticed. Just then, my in-laws rushed over and started berating me for failing to take care of their son, blaming me for what happened to Ji Mingyi. "Ji, we're going to have a baby. Can I use that medicine first?" Sun Tingting's words struck like a thunderbolt. The in-laws were in disbelief, unable to accept that their accomplished son had an affair and fathered a child out of wedlock. "Who do you think you are? Casually slinging mud at my son, with your loose behavior. Who knows who the father really is?" Ji Mingyi, who had been reluctant just moments before, now looked as if he were ready to sacrifice himself heroically. "Don't give Tingting a hard time. Let her have the medicine first. We need to protect this child." They held hands, gazing at each other with tear-filled eyes. It's almost comical. The doctor was already planning to prescribe medication for Sun Tingting as soon as he learned she was pregnant, and yet, these two, completely unaware, had to go and pull this stunt. What could the mother-in-law possibly say after seeing her own son admit to it? She just snapped at me bitterly. "Don't blame Mingyi either. It's your own fault for not being able to conceive after all this time married. In my past life." Ji Mingyi stood by and watched as my in-laws pressured me to have a child. The few times I talked back, he scolded me for being too blunt and embarrassing them. This time, I'm curious to see how his secret love child will play out, and whether these image-obsessed in-laws can still keep up appearances. The doctor cut off my mother-in-law scolding. "He's ready now and needs emergency surgery." Right after we signed a stack of forms and he was wheeled into the OR, the medication arrived just in time for the procedure. The surgery took several hours to complete. After he was moved to the recovery room, the doctor came by to update us on his condition. His lower body had been pinned for too long, and he was desperately trying to save his legs, but his lower body was crushed, and even if he recovers, it might never function properly again. Upon hearing this, his parents collapsed to the ground in despair. Meanwhile, I was overjoyed inside. Though he survived, he'd been effectively neutered. After a long moment of stunned silence, my father-in-law nudged my mother-in-law and said to me with difficulty, "Xiaoyu, don't worry, Mingyi can still be cured eventually. For now, let's just keep Sun Tingting calm. Once she gives birth, we'll bring the baby to you to raise." I curled my lips into a faint smile and said calmly, "I'm not raising someone else's child. Did you really think I could stay with this trash any longer?" Ji Mingyi shouted hoarsely in anger. "You heartless, ungrateful woman, don't even dream about divorcing me and walking away." I paid no mind to his threats and retorted, "If you refuse to agree, I'll expose your affair and your inadequacy. How would you feel if all your classmates and colleagues found out? I doubt you'd want to lose your job over this." Ji Mingyi's eyes were bloodshot. Glaring at me with intense fury, he knew I was capable of doing it. He had always valued his reputation, and his workplace placed great emphasis on personal integrity. In his previous life, even after having an affair with Sun Tingting, he never dared to ask me for a divorce. It wasn't until after Sun Tingting's death that he discovered she had been pregnant. He then pinned all the blame on me and attempted to poison me with toxic mushroom soup. Ji Mingyi, who had expected to die, narrowly escaped death. "This is driving me crazy. Since we've already torn into each other, I'm not sticking around here any longer." After I got back, I contacted a lawyer to gather evidence. My parents were absolutely furious when they found out. Even if I'm conservative, it's only under the condition that the other person is equally loyal. Now that he's done something this shameless, they're fully supporting my decision to divorce. The divorce went more smoothly than I expected. And I got all the assets. They were probably afraid I'd make a huge scene, or maybe they confirmed that Sun Tingting's pregnancy was secure. Either way, they were desperate to make things official. In any case, a month later, I was single again. I really didn't want to throw away my future just to get back at those two worthless people. Now, I just want to focus on living my best life. Those two have plenty of mess waiting for them. They'll bring about their own downfall sooner or later. I only heard about them again through my mom. At the dinner table, my mom casually brought it up. "Do you know what happened to Ji Mingyi?" I stopped picking up food with my chopsticks and shook my head. My mom said with schadenfreude, "He beat Sun Tingting so badly she had a miscarriage." My dad's eyes widened. Weren't they about to get married? What's with this sudden drama? My mom immediately put down her bowl, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Turns out he discovered the baby Sun Tingting was carrying wasn't his. He flew into a rage and attacked her, got arrested, and the news reached his workplace. That's how everyone found out. Now he's definitely losing his job. After dinner, I asked a few close friends for the details. After Ji Mingyi and I divorced, Ji's mother showered Sun Tingting with attention, buying her numerous tonics for her pregnancy. Seeing how eager Ji's mother was, she asked for a substantial amount of money, as the child she was carrying was now the Ji family's only heir. Even if she asked for the stars in the sky, the elderly couple would do everything in their power to get them for her. But Mrs. Ji's constant pressure for marriage finally pushed her over the edge. Why would she ever agree to marry a good-for-nothing? Fed up with the nagging, she bluntly revealed in front of everyone that the child wasn't Ji Mingyi's. The Ji family was in disbelief and immediately had Sun Tingting undergo a non-invasive paternity test. It turned out the child wasn't his after all. He endured this pain to save Sun Tingting, only to be manipulated and played for a fool. How could he possibly swallow such humiliation? After being captured, he passed out due to his body not having fully recovered. He is currently receiving treatment at the hospital. After work that day, I received an unknown call. It was from the police. The person sounded frantic. "Is this Miss Zhou Yu? We're at the city hospital and need your immediate assistance with an urgent matter." I rushed to the hospital and got the full picture. After waking up in the hospital, Ji Mingyi took advantage of the dinner hour to sneak into Sun Tingting's room, held her at knife point to the rooftop, and was reported to the police after being spotted. His demand to the police was to see me. That's how I ended up being escorted to the rooftop by the police. They repeatedly assured me of my safety before we went up. I didn't dare to approach. And Ji Mingyi was too afraid of an ambush to come closer either, so we remained at a standoff right there. I broke the silence first. "Don't act on impulse. Didn't you love her deeply?" As if I'd hit a nerve, he roared. "What do you know? That bitch actually lied to me." Ji Mingyi's blade had already cut through the skin of her neck, leaving a trail of blood. Sun Tingting's teeth chattered uncontrollably, and a damp patch slowly spread across the hem of her pants. Trembling, she begged for mercy. "It's all my fault. Please spare me. I promise I'll marry you." Ji Mingyi sneered. "You called me your dog. Why would you marry me? I got injured saving you, and you dare betray me." Then, with a deranged grin, he snarled at me. "So you're back too, huh? Why didn't you stop me from becoming a cripple? Both of you deserve to die, since you remember now. How dare you blame me? Didn't I try to stop you back then? Look how you treated me." You're pointing fingers everywhere. But every choice was yours to make. Enraged by my words, he lunged like a rabid dog, shoving Sun Tingting aside and raising a fruit knife to charge at me. I recoiled in terror as a gunshot rang out with a sharp bang. Ji Mingyi collapsed to his knees, clutching his wounded hand and groaning in agony. 2 men swiftly rushed forward and pinned him to the ground. Seeing this, Sun Tingting shed her earlier fear and sneered, "Calling you a dog wasn't wrong, you've always been my lapdog, and now you're a neutered mutt, how dare you dream of marrying me?" Ji Mingyi's eyes blazed with fury at those words. Suddenly breaking free with all his might, he charged toward Sun Tingting, holding her tight. He tumbled over the edge of the multi-story rooftop and plunged downward. Although an air cushion had been laid out below, Ji Mingyi hit the edge of it and bounced onto the ground. Sun Tingting fell onto the air cushion and was not in any life-threatening danger. After all that commotion, Ji Mingyi was wheeled back into the operating room. His parents actually had the nerve to show up at my door. "Xiaoyu, Mingyi still has feelings for you. He knows he was wrong now, and he's been punished for it. He won't go out and cause trouble anymore." A look of contempt flashed in my eyes. Of course he wouldn't dare try anything. He's completely incapable right now. They only knew that Ji Mingyi had taken Sun Tingting hostage and was demanding to see me, clueless about the real situation. They assumed he wanted to reconcile with me. I waved my hand and started to close the door, but they blocked it. "Fine," they said, "we'll transfer the old family house to you too. Now you have no reason to refuse. Let's get remarried tomorrow." As if they were granting me some enormous favor, my eyes turned icy cold. "Even if Ji Mingyi survives, he'll be rotting in prison. How dare either of you have the audacity to say such things to me, old mister?" Ji scowled. "What man would want a divorced woman like you? Married all this time without conceiving a child? Who knows if there's something wrong with you? We've already planned it out. After you remarry Mingyi, we'll adopt a child from our hometown for you to raise. Once Mingyi gets out, your family will be complete again." "Well, that's some grand promise and one hell of a nerve. What kind of nonsense are you dreaming up? Have you lost your minds? Instead of meddling in my affairs, you should worry about your own son. By the time he gets out, he'll be an old man, no job, no pension. How's he supposed to survive then?" Ji's father was so furious his eyes turned red. "Isn't that why I'm here now? We were once husband and wife. Surely that bond means something. You can't just stand by and watch me suffer." Ji's mother blurted out what was truly on her mind without a second thought. "You think I'm an easy target and came to me as a last resort. I'm not putting up with this. If you're worried about Ji Mingyi having no one to care for him, why don't you just have a second child yourselves?" I called the neighborhood security to have them removed, and warned that if these two show up again, we'll call the police directly. Ji Mingyi's luck ran out this time. He suffered neurological damage that left him aphasic and partially paralyzed, a fate worse than death in his eyes. He was granted non-custodial sentence and taken home for care. The incident left Sun Tingting psychologically scarred. She became increasingly erratic and was eventually taken back to her hometown by family. The next update about Ji Mingyi came from a short video news segment I stumbled upon. My previous remarks must have provoked his parents. They actually went ahead and had a second child, though it wasn't Mrs. Ji who gave birth. Instead, Mr. Ji found a younger woman outside to bear the child. That woman marched right into their home with the baby, demanding that Mr. Ji divorce his wife and be with her. The whole mess was so chaotic that they even dragged the media into it, in a bid to protect her own interests. Mrs. Ji, who cares deeply about saving face, also took to Douyin to vent, slamming the mistress and her husband for their despicable behavior. This drew a wave of supporters who sympathized with her. However, after Ji Mingyi's past actions were exposed, some people said the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. When I opened the comment section of her account, the top comments were filled with mockery and sarcasm, though further down there were some words of support and comfort. She was actually the victim in this matter, but back when I was in the same situation as her, she didn't blame her own son for his mistakes. Instead, she pinned all the blame on me, the innocent one, back when she claimed Ji Mingyi cheated because I wasn't good enough. She probably never imagined she'd end up in the same situation herself. Just as I was boarding the high-speed train with my parents for a vacation down south, my phone buzzed with a new notification. I tapped to open it. It was Uncle Ji pleading earnestly that everything he did was for Mingyi's own good, especially now that the young man was bedridden. What would become of him after his elderly parents passed away? They raised this child, and later they could still take care of Ji Mingyi. Ji's mother eventually agreed to the divorce but not to moving out. She serves everyone at home like a nanny. This was a real slap in the face to Ji's mother's online supporters. People began to publicly condemn and criticize her, but her silent endurance did not lead to better days. Before long, that woman started pressuring her uncle to transfer the house to her. and one late night after securing the property, she abandoned the child. She absconded with all their money. By the time they realized what happened, the person had long vanished. Now they had to raise children while caring for that paralyzed Ji Mingi. Their hearts were willing but their strength fell short. As if things weren't bad enough, that woman mortgaged their house to loan sharks. With the house repossessed, the family had nowhere to go and could only slink back to their hometown in disgrace. My mom tapped me on the shoulder, gesturing for me to look ahead. Two elderly people were hunched over, one holding a child and the other pushing a wheelchair. On the uphill slope, the wheelchair wasn't steadied properly, and the emaciated person in it fell to the ground. It immediately drew a crowd of onlookers who stopped to watch. I squinted for a closer look. Isn't that my ex-husband and his family? There wasn't a trace left of the handsome, upright man he used to be, crouched on the ground. He tried to bury his head to escape the stares around him. Sadly, he couldn't even manage that simple movement. He could only whimper and shuffle awkwardly on the ground. Bystanders took pity on him and rushed over to help him up. As they pulled him upright, the skin on his back became exposed. His back was covered with bedsores, a truly horrifying sight. A wave of sorrow washed over me. So be it, this living death is my reality now. We arrived in the south with my parents and had a wonderful time exploring together. Now that I've been reborn, I've truly let go and found peace. My mom sipped coconut juice and mused about life. From now on, your dad and I won't interfere with your decisions anymore. We just want you to know that no matter what choices you make or what comes of them, we'll always have your back. Wow, you're being so sentimental. My dad patted my head and said, I just didn't want you to be affected by all this nonsense. I smiled and hugged them. No way, this time I won't let myself be trapped by people who don't love me. Story 2. When the kidnappers forced Shen Xingchuan to choose between the two of us, he chose me over his childhood sweetheart, Xiao Qingmei, but I didn't leave with him, because I knew he would regret it. In my past life, after I was rescued, Xiao Qingmei was humiliated by the kidnappers who took inappropriate photos of her, and she ended her life on the night she returned. Shen Xingchuan pretended not to care, proceeded with our wedding as planned, but made me suffer throughout our marriage. 7 years later, I finally forced him to agree to a divorce, but on our way to finalize it, he lost control of his emotions and drove the car off a cliff. Even in his last moments, he blamed me. We owed Xiao Xiao. We should have atoned for her in this life. How could you be so selfish? So, given another chance, I didn't want to live that way again. 1. Wei Wei, come with me. Realizing I had been reborn at the moment the kidnapper was holding a knife to mine and Tang Xiaxia's necks, they demanded Shen Xingchuan choose one of us to save. His gaze shifted between us, and after a fierce internal struggle, he made the same choice as in his past life. He reached out to me, but I firmly shook my head. Shen Xingchuan, save Tang Xiaxiao first. This time, I didn't want to owe anyone anything, nor did I want to live bearing the guilt of someone's death. Shen Xingchuan seemed relieved by my words. Wei Wei, you are my fiancé, I should save you first, but since you've said this, don't blame me. Then he quickly left the scene with Tang Xiaxiao, as if afraid I might change my mind. But I'm not like him, I don't regret my choices afterwards. In the previous life, he brought the money, but the kidnappers raised the price at the last minute, saying they could only take one person first. Shen Xingchuan had no choice but to choose me. But during the time we went back to gather more money, the kidnappers, taking advantage of the situation, took inappropriate photos of Tang Xiaxiao and were about to assault her. Fortunately, we arrived in time with the police. Even though they didn't go through with it, the mere situation had already stripped a young girl of her dignity. Tang Xiaoxiao returned home distraught and ended her life by wrist-cutting at night when everyone was asleep. By the time she was found, it was too late. Shen Xingchuan, upon hearing the news, showed no signs of care. He calmly handled Tang Xiaxiao's funeral arrangements and compensated her family generously. Even when I suggested postponing the wedding, he flatly refused. Wei Wei, marrying you has always been the plan. It shouldn't be affected by outsiders. Yet, the outsider he mentioned haunted him for 7 years. Marrying me was just to trap me, to make me atone for Tang Xiaoxiao. But what was my fault, too? After Shen Xingchuan left with her, I started figuring out how to save myself, because this time, I wasn't sure if Shen Xingchuan would come back for me. In the previous life, he had slipped a tracker into Tang Xiaxia's pocket while hugging her. Thus, even when the kidnappers changed locations, we could locate Tang Xiaoxiao immediately. But just now, it seemed he had forgotten all about it, I guess, from the beginning. The person he wanted to save was always Tang Xiaoxiao. It was only because of my status as his fiancé and fear of being criticized by others that he reluctantly chose me. After all, our engagement was just a union of families. Our feelings for each other were never that deep. While Tang Xiaoxiao had been with him during his most innocent years, they were childhood sweethearts and true confidants. It's only natural that Shen Xingchuan from a past life would have regrets in this life. He finally got his wish. I'm happy for him. Meanwhile, I didn't forget to look for an opportunity to escape. I knew that when the kidnappers moved locations, they'd pass by an auto repair shop. The mechanics inside were known for their fierce and ruthless fights. In my past life, when the kidnappers passed by, they tried to temporarily occupy the repair shop, but didn't anticipate the tough-as-nails owner who flatly refused. The group ended up in a fierce brawl. The kidnappers probably never dreamed that there were people even more fearsome than them. Eventually, fearing the situation might escalate, they had no choice but to flee in disgrace. Later, when the kidnappers were caught, the repair shop owner came forward to testify. Just like in my previous life, they left one person in the car to watch over me, the rest rushed towards the repair shop. My hands were tied behind my back, and the kidnapper in the driver's seat completely underestimated me. I took advantage of his inattention and bit open the car door handle with my mouth. Then I pushed the door open and ran forward like mad. My destination, like the kidnappers, was also the auto repair shop. I was betting that they wouldn't stand by and watch me perish, so I charged in brazenly. Inside the shop, chaos reigned. I immediately spotted the young owner of the repair shop. His features were sharp and his presence commanded a kind of awe-inspiring righteousness. Coupled with his nimble movements, he exuded an indescribable coolness. Afraid of being accidentally hurt, I sprinted over to him with lightning speed, but I used too much force and ended up knocking him to the ground. When I fell into his arms, my face turned pale with fright. Sorry, so sorry, I stammered an apology. Could you please help me? The man glanced at me, his eyebrows knitting together. The next second, he rolled on the ground with me several times. Then, with a loud bang, a chair fell right where we had just lain. If he hadn't acted quickly, I probably would have been seriously injured. Still shaken, the kidnappers realized I had escaped. What started as a territorial dispute now turned into a kidnapping situation. Both sides faced off. I looked up at the man beside me and whispered, "If you can save me, I'll do anything." But he didn't respond, instead pondering the group of kidnappers. Someone from behind couldn't help but remind him, "Qingyi, it's better to mind your own business." So his name was Qingyi. As my heart slowly sank without a response, I thought, why force the issue? When the leader of the kidnappers called me over for the third time, I started walking towards them, but soon, a hand pressed on my shoulder. I was forced to stop. Qingyi stepped forward and said to the kidnappers, "She's under my protection today." Perhaps even the heavens were on my side, as suddenly the roaring sound of motorcycles was heard outside. Qingyi's face broke into a confident smile. "My backup has arrived." Hearing this, the kidnappers glared at me unwillingly and walked away cursing. My heart, which had been in suspense, finally settled. I silently sighed in relief and felt my wrists being freed. Qingyi had cut the ropes binding my hands. "I'm Lin Wei. Thank you for what you did just now." I extended my hand towards him. Qingyi, however, kept staring at my wrist. Where the ropes had left marks, it looked quite alarming. "Let me take care of that for you." I shook my head. "It's just a minor injury, no big deal. Wasn't it you who said that you'd do anything as long as I could save you?" Without further discussion, he pressed me down onto a stool and fetched the first aid kit. "Bear with me for a moment." I bit my lip, watching him intently as he treated my wound. A sudden warmth filled my heart. I remembered in my past life, shortly after I married Shen Xingchuan, there was an incident where he got drunk. As I helped him back to the room and suggested he drink less, he became furious and pushed me away violently. I lost my balance and fell to the ground. The jade bracelet on my wrist shattered as it hit the floor, and the fragments cut into my wrist. I screamed in pain, clutching my bleeding wrist. Seeing this, Shen Xingchuan just stared at me coldly and said, "Does it hurt? Good. Xiao suffered far more than you ever could, yet she can no longer feel pain. If it weren't for trying to save you, how would she have ended up humiliated by the kidnappers? How could she have become so desperate?" I sat there on the ground, in utter disbelief. My heart grew colder bit by bit. It took a long time before I could find my voice again. "But, the kidnappers took me and Tang Xiaoxiao to threaten you. It was your choice to save me first. Why are you saying these things to me now?" The drunken look on Shen Xingzhou's face seemed to have faded, But his gaze was still icy. Lin Wei. I was actually against this arranged marriage from the start. If you hadn't told Grandma that you liked me, she wouldn't have forced me to marry you. So, what you mean is, if it weren't for me, you would only need to save Tang Xiaoxiao. Haha. I suddenly burst into laughter. Shen Xingchuan, you're being ridiculous, blaming me instead of the kidnappers. I stood up and went back to my room to tend to my wound myself. From that day onwards, no matter how much it hurt, I never spoke to Shen Xingchuan about it again. Now, the person in front of me was clumsily blowing on my wound, afraid that I was in pain. With a sour feeling in my eyes, I closed them and took a deep breath, knowingly asking, "What are you doing?" Qingyi looked up, his smile pure. "When I was a child and got hurt, my mom would do this to ease the pain. Does it feel a bit better?" I nodded. "Yes, much better." Encouraged by my response, Qingyi continued what he was doing. But the peaceful moment was soon interrupted. "Brother Qin, I heard someone was causing trouble at your repair shop, so I rushed over. Where did you find such a charming girl?" A tall man with tattooed arms entered the door and immediately his eyes lit up at the sight of me. "It's really rare. I think this is the first time I've seen such a beautiful girl here." As the tattooed man spoke, a shy smirk crawled across his face. Seeing this, Qingyi stepped in front of me. "Thanks, but the issue has already been resolved. As for anything else, it's none of your business. I'll treat you to a drink another day." The tattooed man was taken aback, then realized the situation. "Old Qin, now that you've got a girl, can't even deal with your own brother." He turned his head away haughtily and huffed loudly. It seemed like he was angry. Qingyi rubbed his forehead and then pulled him aside, whispering, "Can't you be more observant? Just go wherever it's cooler." "Brother Qin, is she your girlfriend? Does it look like it?" "They look like a perfect match at first glance. You know what's what." "Kid, I don't care. You have to treat me to some wedding candies. You won't miss out." The two not far away kept whispering. Though they tried to keep their voices down, their words still clearly reached my ears. To ease the awkwardness, I pretended to be very busy, looking left, right, up, and down, just not daring to look at them. A few minutes later, Qingyi had coaxed the tattooed man away. After he left, Qingyi asked me, "Where do you live? I'll take you home." Maybe out of selfishness, I suddenly didn't want to go home so quickly. After all, my parents are busy with their own affairs all year round. And even if I didn't go home for a month, they wouldn't ask. As for Shen Xingchuan, if I guessed right, he was probably reborn too. He must be eager to spend his life with Tang Xiaoxiao now. In my previous life, after being married to him for 7 years, he never took me to any event, nor did we share a room. When others asked about me, he always responded coldly, eventually turning me into a joke in our circle. This lifetime, I might as well stay far away from him. So, I pleaded with Qingyi. "Could you let me stay with you for a few days?" My fingers carefully clutched at the hem of his shirt, shaking it slightly. Considering both lifetimes, he should be a good person, and he also had the capability to protect me. Would he refuse if I imposed on him? Suddenly, Qingyi looked down at me, his gaze burning intensely. "Little girl, if you keep this up, I might take you seriously." Perhaps because the distance was too close, I could even smell the fresh scent of soapberry on him. I swallowed reflexively, about to speak, when I heard a familiar voice behind me. "What are you doing?" It was Shen Xingchuan. He had come with the police. "You alright?" Shen Xingchuan looked at me, his concern seeming genuine. I shrugged. "Do I look like I'm in trouble?" Shen Xingchuan fell silent. Tang Xiaoxiao then walked in. She glanced at the now normally operating repair shop and bluntly asked, "Lin Wei, how did you escape from the kidnappers?" "As far as I know, there were 6 of them." "Your hands were tied, and you were in unfamiliar territory." I'm really curious, what did Tang Xiaoxiao mean by that? Everyone knows that the Lin and Shen families were planning a marriage alliance, but they were also both eyeing that piece of land in the south of the city. With the auction happening in 10 days, the highest bidder wins. But just at this critical moment, this incident happens, and the ransom was frighteningly high. Lin Wei, I really can't help but think crooked. Was she suspecting that I hired the kidnappers? I admit, I've never been so speechless in both my lifetimes. Tang Xiaoxiao's plight in her previous life, I truly feel helpless and sympathetic. But this life, it's as if I saved her. Yet after she was rescued, her first reaction was to bite back at me. It's truly disheartening. Suddenly, I raised my hand. He shouted loudly, "Officer, someone here is slandering me." Then, all of us were taken away, while waiting for the interrogation. Tang Xiaoxiao was relentless. Why won't you speak, Lin Wei? I snorted coldly. Why should I talk to you? You're not a cop. Tang Xiaoxiao was at a loss for words. Shen Xingchuan couldn't stand it anymore and quickly stood up to speak for Tang Xiaoxiao. Lin Wei, Xiaoxiao is just trying to understand the truth so she knows what to say and what not to say during the interrogation. What? Are you planning to lie to the police? Shen Xingchuan, infuriated, stood up and pointed at me, saying, Lin Wei, you are being completely unreasonable. Qin Yi, who just came out of the interrogation room, saw this and immediately stepped in front of me. Put your hand down. His tone was even, yet it carried an undeniable force. I hid behind Qin Yi, unable to see their faces, but I could vaguely smell the tension in the air. Shen Xingchuan asked, and who are you to her? Qin Yi turned his face towards me, his lips slightly curled. What do you think? He countered. I looked up at his nearly perfect profile, and impulsively, with my thumb and index finger, I made a heart shape. Shen Xingchuan saw this and his face darkened several shades. Just then, the police called him to make a statement. After a round of questioning, the situation became somewhat clearer. The police had identified a suspect, and now they needed to catch the kidnapper to proceed with the investigation. But I knew, this was the work of Shen Xingchuan's rival. After leaving the police station, Qin Yi looked at me and said, okay, what? I was completely puzzled. He explained, the thing you asked me about this afternoon, it's okay. I finally understood he was referring to my request for him to let me stay with him. It's just me and my mom at home, and she's currently at the old house. I usually stay at the repair shop, so feel free to come. I was just about to agree, then Shen Xingchuan chimed in, Lin Wei, your parents already know about the kidnapping. They must have landed by now and are heading home. Are you sure you don't want to go back? I couldn't help but feel a pang in my heart. My parents' affairs, Shen Xingchuan, a stranger, knew them better than I did. Ever since I can remember, they've always been busy, too busy to remember my birthday, too busy to attend parent-teacher meetings. I even deliberately failed exams and got myself hurt just to see them because only then would they show up briefly and give me a little insignificant love. Eventually, I stopped hoping and learned to celebrate my own birthdays, paying a kind florist to attend parent-teacher meetings because she was gentle and looked nice. That's how I grew up alone, until I met Shen Xingchuan. On the school basketball court, he casually blocked a ball that was heading towards me. Under the sunlight, the young man's face was strikingly handsome, beads of sweat rolling down his forehead, shimmering with a crystal-clear luster, with a slight lift of his eyes. Carrying a subtle arrogance, he said, classmate, be careful. With his cool voice, with just one glance, I was captivated. Back then, I was timid. After muttering a shy thank you, I quickly ran away. From that moment on, I started paying attention to him, intentionally and unintentionally, and learned that he had a close childhood friend, but their relationship seemed to only remain at that innocent stage of childhood friends. My youthful crush was silent, yet it silently spread throughout the depths of my heart. Even accidental meetings or casual exchanges of looks would make my face flush and my heart race. I was well aware that in my future marriage, I likely wouldn't have much say, so when I found out that my arranged marriage was to be with Shen Xingchuan, I was overjoyed for a long time. My parents thought highly of Shen Xingchuan and often contacted him more than me. In my past life, when I asked for a divorce from Shen Xingchuan, they flatly refused. Xingchuan is exceptionally capable and tolerates your flaws. Why won't you cherish him and instead make us worry? I knew that since our marriage, the Lin and Shen family's interests had been intertwined, making divorce not so simple. Thus, I endured year after year until I developed depression and began self-harming, which finally compelled Shen Xingchuan to agree to a divorce. Given a second chance at life, I wanted to truly live for myself. That's why I didn't want to go home. However, I suddenly remembered that there was still something unresolved that needed me to return home. Before leaving, I took Qin Yi's phone from his pocket, entered my number, and dialed it. Only after hearing the ringing did I return the phone to him. Remember to save my number. I'll come looking for you in a couple of days. After saying that, I hailed a taxi and left. Throughout, I didn't give Shen Xingchuan a single glance. Upon returning home, I found my parents waiting for me in the living room. Before I could speak, they bombarded me with criticisms. Xingchuan told us about today. Can't you stop being so willful from now on? That was a kidnapper. You could have been killed. Yet you had Xingchuan save someone else first. My mother sighed deeply as she spoke. How can we trust you to take over the company like this? They didn't trust me, so in my past life, they handed the company over to Shen Xingchuan. Then they lived worry-free and pursued the dreams of their youth. My father, who had been sitting on the sofa, suddenly spoke up. Let's get the wedding sorted out soon. I disagree, I stated firmly. I came back to tell you that I'm going to the Shin family tomorrow to call off this marriage, whether you agree or not. This time I will make my own decisions. Also, don't try to use the company to threaten me. You can give it to whoever you want. I don't want it anyway. Having lived once already, I knew the trends of the next 7 years, so I wouldn't end up destitute. With that, I went back to my room. They must be even more disappointed in me now, but it doesn't matter. The next day, I got up early, but I saw my mother had personally prepared breakfast and was waiting for me. Heard from Aunt Fawn that you were up looking for food last night. I'm sorry that I didn't prepare enough, she said. I forgot to ask if you had dinner, my mother said, surprising me with her sudden gentleness and consideration. She affectionately tucked a stray hair behind my ear and spoke with a tone of self-reproach. Your father and I reflected last night and realized that perhaps we'd been using the wrong approach all along. We wanted you to be independent, so we refrained from pampering you too much, fearing we might spoil you. You want to make your own decisions, and that's fine. We're not insisting you marry into the Shin family. Was this their way of agreeing to me calling off the engagement? Suddenly, I felt a pang of sadness. As a child, I had my share of tantrums and arguments, only to be met with scolding. Later, I began to behave and thought that would earn their attention, but all they did was regard me as weak and incapable. Now, by just mirroring their approach and speaking harshly, they seemed to have changed their perspective. Even as I arrived at the Shin family's villa, I still found it unbelievable. The idea of an alliance through marriage between the Shen and Lin families was initially suggested by Shin Xingchuan's grandmother. It all started when I saved her from fainting due to low blood sugar at a banquet. Grateful, she insisted on acknowledging me as her god-granddaughter. As we became more acquainted, I would occasionally dine at the old Shin house. It was there I met Shin Xingchuan and learned that the old lady was his grandmother. Sharp as ever, she immediately noticed my fondness for Xingchuan, which led to everything that followed. Now, the thought of personally discussing the cancellation of the engagement with her felt somewhat unfair, especially since she had given me the Shin family's heirloom bracelet. It seemed I had no choice but to return it. Shin Xingchuan arrived before me, accompanied by Tang Xiaoxiao. They were both dressed formally, which matched the situation since I had called off our engagement, allowing them to possibly get engaged immediately. A situation where everyone could be happy. However, when I placed the bracelet on the table, Shin Xingchuan grabbed my wrist and asked, "What does this mean?" Right, I had only mentioned meeting at the Shin family home last night, without bringing up the breakup. Old lady Shen, sensing something, asked, Wei Wei, did Xingchuan do something to wrong you? Her gaze sharply turned towards Tang Xiaoxiao. I respectfully responded to old lady Shen, Grandma Shen, I want to break off the engagement with Xingchuan. My tone was calm, as if discussing the day's weather. Upon hearing this, Shin Xingchuan's pupils dilated in disbelief. Why? Because you abandoned me yesterday to save someone else. I thought she must be the one you truly want to marry. I looked at Tang Xiaoxiao, who was staring back at me, her expression defiant. No, Shin Xingchuan's eyes flickered with self-doubt. Wasn't it you who asked me to save Xiaoxiao first? I was testing you, and the result is clear. Shin Xingchuan was left speechless. Old lady Shin sighed and said, I heard about yesterday. You are a good child. Xingchuan doesn't deserve you. Grandma, Shin Xingchuan suddenly interrupted her. He gripped my wrist tighter, as if trying to crush my bones. Lin Wei, I will not agree to this. Don't even think about it. The pain from yesterday's injury, exacerbated by his grip, was likely to cause bleeding again. I endured the pain and suddenly found the whole situation rather amusing. In my past life, after Tang Xiaoxiao's death, he mourned for 7 whole years. Having been reborn, he was even more eager to save Tang Xiaoxiao. I thought he was deeply in love with her, eager to marry her right away. I tugged at the corner of my lips and smiled, saying, if you insist on this, I'll contact the media tomorrow and unilaterally announce the cancellation of our engagement. It will be your Shin family who loses face. After that, I pried Shin Xingchuan's fingers off one by one and turned to leave. I didn't expect Shin Xingchuan to chase after me. Just then, Qin Ye's motorcycle arrived at the Shin residence. Wanting to avoid further entanglement with Shin Xingchuan, I simply said, sorry, my boyfriend has come to pick me up. Shin Xingchuan frowned displeasedly and sneered, Lin Wei, are you sure you want to pick this poor guy as your boyfriend? Can he make you happy, or should I choose someone like you who is hypocritical and fickle? After saying that, I walked towards Qin Yi. But the next second, my wrist was grabbed again. Ouch, I cried out in pain. Shen Xingchuan, the instigator, then noticed the injury on my wrist. He panicked, trying to explain. I didn't know you were hurt. I lowered my eyes with a sarcastic smile. As if you would care if you knew. Qingyi couldn't stand by any longer after seeing this. He rushed up and threw a punch, knocking Shen Xingchuan to the ground with swift and fierce moves. Shen Xingchuan spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes filled with ferocity, but he dared not make any more rash moves. Seeing this, Qingyi warned, "Stay away from her." Then he put his helmet on my head, started the motorcycle, and took me away. As the motorcycle sped through the mountains, the scenery changed rapidly before my eyes. I leaned on Qingyi's back, enjoying the thrill of speed. It felt like this could temporarily make me forget the unpleasantness earlier. "Girlfriend, where do you want to go?" Qingyi's voice came from ahead. I chuckled, realizing he had heard everything I said earlier, so naturally, I wrapped my arms around his waist and said, "Since you called me girlfriend, can I go see your place? I'm quite hungry." "That's not a problem at all, and I'm quite a good cook." "Then I want 4 dishes, definitely arranged." Qingyi's laughter echoed through the mountains, influenced by him. At that moment, I felt an immense sense of relief. Qingyi's house was bigger than I expected. He hurriedly brought me a pair of brand new men's slippers. They might be a bit big, but these are the only new pair I have at home. I casually slipped them on and smiled. It doesn't matter. It's good that I occasionally come back to tidy up. It shouldn't be too messy. Even though he was the host, he seemed the more restrained one. I sat down on the couch, supporting my chin with my hand while looking at him, saying, "I can't cook. So you'll have to work hard today." Instead of cooking right away, Qingyi brought over a first aid kit. The wound that had been properly dressed yesterday was squeezed by Shen Xingchuan today, causing blood to seep into the bandage, which had dried and stuck to the wound. Qingyi carefully poured iodine on the bandage, trying to separate the wound from it. Such meticulous work, and yet he, a man, did it very seriously. Half an hour later, he finally redressed the wound. He didn't forget to remind me. "Don't get it wet for the next few days," I unconsciously said. "How am I supposed to bathe?" "It's okay not to bathe for 2 days." After thinking, he added, "I won't mind." "You dare." "I wouldn't dare." "Humph. Shall I start cooking then?" "Sure." I nodded with a smile. I suddenly realized that every time I was with Qingyi, I felt particularly relaxed. An hour later, he had prepared 4 dishes. They were sweet and sour pork loin, garlic shrimp, steamed fish, and cucumber salad. He handed me the chopsticks. "Try them." After tasting several dishes, I gave him a thumbs up. Delicious in every aspect, unforgettable just like him. It seems I won't have to worry about finding a good meal in the future. In the afternoon, I received a call from my dad. He wanted me to attend an auction in 10 days, saying that if I could secure the land in the southern part of the city, he would let me take full charge of the company. I was familiar with that plot of land. Besides the Shen and Lin families, several other businesses were eyeing it as well. In my previous life, due to a kidnapping incident, I was greatly traumatized, and the subsequent death of Tang Xiaoxiao left its mark on me. Consequently, I fell seriously ill and missed the auction. Even if I hadn't been ill, I wouldn't have competed with Shen Xingchuan. Back then, my whole heart was filled with him, believing I had found the person I could entrust my life to. However, the Shen family was facing a debt crisis at the time, and it was difficult for Shen Xingchuan to secure the land. Ultimately, I transferred a sum of money from the Lin family to help him. Shen Xingchuan successfully won the bid and built a theme park on the land, attracting many businesses. Within a few years, he had propelled the Shen family to new heights. This clearly showed that the land was a sure-win investment, which explained why so many were after it. This time, I was determined to win it. Unexpectedly, Tang Xiaoxiao came to beg me. Her demeanor was very different from her aggressive attitude a few days ago. This time, she was very humble and pleaded with me in a lowly tone. "Can you not break off your engagement with Xingchuan? There has never been anything more than friendship between him and me. If you agree, I will never appear in front of you again." I silently watched her, speechless. Yes, in my previous life, I also thought that they were just good friends, but after Tang Xiaoxiao's death, Shen Xingchuan's behavior was clearly more than just mourning a good friend. I remember the day he agreed to divorce me. It was after my 10th attempt at self-harm due to depression. He came back to find me lying on the ground, covered in blood. He probably feared that I might die in his house, finally agreeing to the divorce. But on the way to get divorced, he suddenly asked me, Do you know today is Xiaoxiao's death anniversary? I looked at him blankly and shook my head. I couldn't even take care of myself, let alone remember these dates. But my reaction infuriated Shen Xingchuan. He violently pounded the steering wheel, cursing me for being cold and heartless. Your current life, Xiaoxiao paid for it with her life, yet you've never been grateful. You even forgot her death anniversary and just thought about leaving. Do you think this will absolve you of guilt, Lin Wei? You truly disgust me. In my anger, I retorted harshly, yes, you are grateful, you can't forget her, why don't you die with her? Right after my words, the car suddenly swerved uncontrollably, and finally crashed straight down the cliff. Even in his final moments, Shen Xingchuan was still blaming me. We indeed owed Xiaoxiao. He slapped himself on the mouth and muttered, can't I visit without a reason, look at my foolish lips, then he flashed a grin at me. Sister-in-law, take a rest, Brother Qin should be back soon. I nodded and sat down on the sofa. On the coffee table, there were several sets of different tea sets. I brewed a pot of tea for myself and savored it slowly. Big Tattoo didn't leave, his face was full of curiosity, and his eyes kept sizing me up, seeing me make tea myself. He explained, I'm a rough guy, I don't know how to handle these delicate things. Usually, it's Brother Qin who brews it for me to drink. I hope you don't mind. I looked up and asked, what is your name, Lei Yong? Is he good to you? For some reason, I just had this feeling. Lei Yong shook his head, and I thought I had guessed wrong. Then I heard him say, no, Brother Qin is good to all of us. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, tell me more. The employees here at the repair shop mostly come from impoverished mountain areas, and many have physical disabilities. For instance, Aquin, who handles engine repairs, can't speak. But he can identify the problem just by hearing the sounds. Then there's Chen Ping, who handles maintenance and has a limp, and Adon, who does the painting and can't read a single word. When they first came to this city, they were hoping to make a living, but they soon found out that with physical disabilities, no diplomas, and no special skills, even finding a decent job was difficult. It was Brother Qin who took them in, giving them time to learn skills, providing food and accommodation, and even paying them a salary. So a group of people faithfully followed Brother Qin, going nowhere else. So that was it. I looked at Lei Yong again and asked, what about you? Upon hearing this, a serious expression appeared on his face for the first time. I met Brother Qin 5 years ago when I had offended someone and was almost beaten to death. Brother Qin saved me. Since then, I swore I'd follow Brother Qin for life. And if anyone dares to bully him, they'd have to step over my dead body first. Honestly, I was deeply moved by these words. All this time, the environment I was in was lonely, not to mention how few people truly cared about me, yet Qin Yi was able to gather such a group of people, who genuinely and steadfastly followed him. I was truly envious and suddenly very eager to meet him. Do you know where he went? Lei Yong thought for a moment and said, Brother Qin didn't specify a location. Just mentioned that someone was looking for him, probably around Tiancheng Square. As I was about to leave, Lei Yong seemed to remember something else and added, by the way, sister-in-law, actually Brother Qin is quite wealthy, he just keeps a low profile. Originally, he didn't want us to call you sister-in-law, he said you come from a wealthy family, so we should address you as Miss. I frowned, wondering why Qin Yi would use such an old-fashioned title. But I could never have dreamed that I would see Qin Yi sitting with Tang Xiaoxiao in a coffee shop at Tiancheng Square. I didn't know what Tang Xiaoxiao was telling Qin Yi, but I saw her eyes were red, as if she had been crying, while Qin Yi just listened, his brows furrowed and never relaxed. He sat down directly next to Qin Yi from across the table. Intuition told me that there was something complicated between them. If it had been me before today, perhaps I would have just left and blocked Qin Yi. After being hurt once, I could no longer tolerate any relationship that wasn't pure, but if it was Qin Yi, I wanted to trust him just this once. Just as I was about to enter the coffee shop, I saw Qin Yi hastily get up from his seat, as if avoiding something dirty. Then, as I walked into the shop, our eyes met. Compared to my calm demeanor, Qin Yi was initially stunned, clearly not expecting to see me there, and then quickly walked towards me. Wei. At this moment, Tang Xiaoxiao also came chasing out, urgency written on her face. Mr. Qin, if you agree, Tang Xiaoxiao's words stopped abruptly upon seeing me. However, she quickly regained her composure and instead turned to ask me, Lin Wei, what brings you here? Could it be that you are also here to see Mr. Qin? She said, consciously leaning towards Qin Yi. But Qin Yi was vigilant and immediately stepped towards me as she approached. He looked at me somewhat innocently and said, Wei Wei, I pretended to be fierce. We'll deal with this when we get back. Watching our interaction, Tang Xiaoxiao's expression gradually darkened. Lin Wei, I really underestimated you. I shrugged and replied, that's right, I think so too. Tang Xiaoxiao was visibly upset, her face changing colors like a spilled palette, a sight to behold. In truth, I was not one to easily suffer losses. If not for taking those who didn't care about me too seriously in my past life, I wouldn't have ended up in such a mess. 17. Qingyi took me back home. It was already nearly dark. We just sat on the sofa, neither of us speaking. After a long time, he broke the silence. Aren't you going to ask? Didn't you say you'd deal with me when we got back? I spoke softly. If you want to tell me, you will, even if I don't ask. If you don't want to tell me, asking won't help. Qingyi's face was expressionless. Do you know why Tang Xiaoxiao came to see me? I shook my head. On the way back, I thought of many reasons. Perhaps Tang Xiaoxiao had taken a liking to Qingyi, or maybe Shen Xingchuan disliked our closeness and deliberately sent Tang Xiaoxiao to mess with me. After all, they were close and would do anything for each other. But then Qingyi suddenly asked me if I was eyeing the land in the southern part of the city. I was shocked. How did you know? Because the right to use that land is currently in my hands. It was left to me by my father. What a coincidence. Wait. So Tang Xiaoxiao hadn't given up and went straight to Qingyi, trying to get it from him. But how did she know that land belonged to Qingyi? There was only one answer. Shen Xingchuan must have told her. He must have dealt with Qingyi when acquiring land in his past life. Seeing Qingyi staring at me, I suddenly realized something. You don't think that I approached you just for this land, do you? A bitter feeling surged in my heart. It turned out that while I had my reservations about him, people are starting to suspect me. I lowered my head, wanting to laugh, but I just couldn't muster it. Seeing this, Qingyi suddenly lifted my face, looking very serious, and said, Fool, of course I don't think that way. At first, the thought did flash through my mind, but I quickly dismissed it. I trust my own judgment. I asked, like how you saved Lei Yong and the others. Qingyi slightly raised his eyebrows. No, it's not the same. I saved them out of kindness, but saving you, that was out of love. Qingyi, you really have a way with words. I pouted, slightly complaining. It made me wonder how many others he had charmed like this. Qingyi looked at me indulgently. His hand cradling my face moved slightly, forcing me to lift my head. Then he kissed me, light as a dragonfly touching water. Brief and fleeting. It's not about being skilled, it's from the heart, naturally following instinct. I just felt my cheeks burning, and my heartbeat uncontrollable, afraid that my feelings would be noticed. I buried my face in his chest, my ear against his chest. I could hear his heartbeat loud as thunder, deafening, beating out his love for me. I closed my eyes to feel it, and after a long moment, I said, Qingyi, I love you just as much as you love me. He didn't reply with words, but his actions spoke volumes. He held me even tighter, as if trying to merge me into his bones and blood. The next day, Qingyi handed me a document. Taking a look, I realized it was a land transfer agreement, surprisingly in my name. Qingyi, have you lost your mind? Do you realize what this means? I couldn't believe someone could be so foolish. I've withdrawn the auction. I have what you want. It makes no sense not to give it to you. It was impossible not to be moved. My whole heart felt full and swollen with warmth. I blinked back the tears. This was a happy moment. No time for tears. Since he had shown such sincerity, I couldn't let myself be outdone. I took his hand and said as we walked, before we sign, there's a place I want to take you. I led him to the civil affairs office. Qingyi kept asking me, are you sure about this? I looked at him with a smile. Aren't you afraid I'll take your things, kick you to the curb, and find someone better looking and richer? Qingyi frowned and thought for a moment. Well, richer I'm not sure, but better looking, that would be hard to find. Exactly, so here I am, bringing you here, right? I didn't expect Shen Xingchuan to find us so quickly. Qingyi and I had just left the civil affairs office, the marriage certificate still in our hands. Seeing us, Shen Xingchuan's face turned extremely ugly. His fists trembling slightly, he said, Wei Wei, you still ended up with him. Whatever, I rolled my eyes, not intending to engage with him, but Shen Xingchuan grabbed hold of me. Tears suddenly streamed down my face. Could these be crocodile tears? But I did have some things I wanted to say to Shen Xingchuan, so I asked Qingyi to get in the car first and wait for me. Once it was just the two of us left, Shen Xingchuan couldn't wait to say, Wei Wei, I regret it, I truly regret it. You can hit me or scold me. I just ask for your forgiveness. I sneered back. Regret? What do you regret exactly? Is it that you didn't save me, or that you didn't treat me right in our past life? Hearing this, Shen Xingchuan let go of my wrist, his face losing its color in an instant. It seemed that even he didn't want to recall the matters of his past life. After all, those memories clearly revealed his numerous misdeeds. At that moment, Shen Xingchuan began slapping his own face, saying as he did, "I was deluded, it was my fault, I deserve to die, but Wei. Is there still a chance for us?" I paused for a moment, then asked indifferently, "Shen Xingchuan, what do you think?" He stopped his actions, his eyes drooping, his face defeated. Then, as if struck by a thought, a glimmer of light appeared in his eyes. "No, it's Tang Xiaoxiao, it's all her fault. If she hadn't suddenly come back, none of this would have happened. I never asked her to come to you, she did that all on her own, unilaterally." He grasped my hand again, pleading abjectly. "Can you trust me one last time? The person I've loved from the start is you. Truly, I know I am guilty, so I won't ask for anything. I just beg you to look at me, even if I have to be your servant." I looked at Shen Xingchuan in horror, unable to believe these words were coming from him. I forcefully withdrew my hand, wiping it on my clothes. "Shen Xingchuan, what are you after?" I, of course, didn't believe that he truly loved me. Once you've experienced true love, anything less feels like unwanted trash. Shen Xingchuan wore an expression of deep affection. "I've realized it too late, but either way, I won't give up on you." I felt a chill. It was almost like being haunted by a ghost. "Shen Xingchuan, if you keep this up, I will call the police." Hearing this, Shen Xingchuan froze, tears streaming down his face as if they cost nothing. I just felt annoyed, eager to leave. "Shen Xingchuan, you've only ever loved yourself, whether it's Tang Xiaoxiao or me. None matter more than your own interests, but you can't accept it, can you? Why, after leaving you, I could live even better. So you want to drag me back into the abyss again." But Shen Xingchuan, I'm not alone anymore. My current husband is fierce and formidable in a fight, and he has a group of loyal followers. If you think your life is too long, feel free to try and challenge him. After saying this, I glanced at Tang Xiaoxiao not far away. I had noticed early on that she had followed us, but I didn't make it known. I hope she could see Shen Xingchuan's true nature clearly and not be used and still count money for others. It ended like a farce. After my father knew I had successfully acquired that plot of land, he, as promised, handed over the management of the company to me. I didn't tell them about my marriage registration with Qingyi because I didn't want anyone to interfere. I just wanted to peacefully live our life together. Every day I shuttle between work and home, and time just quietly slips away. Soon after, I heard that Tang Xiaoxiao was going abroad. The person who loved Shen Xingchuan the most didn't want him anymore. Before she left, she posted a lengthy article on social media, condemning Shen Xingchuan for his betrayal and cold-heartedness. With nothing better to do, I boosted the post with some traffic. As a result, the already debt-ridden Shen Corporation was further impacted, and its stocks plummeted. It was said to be on the brink of bankruptcy. Shen Xingchuan was frantic, seeking help everywhere, but who would be willing to help him at this time? So, he turned to me again. Several months had passed since we last met. I'm now busy developing a piece of land, energized by the thought of the substantial profits it promises. Shen Xingchuan had changed drastically from the man I saw a few months ago. His face was gaunt, dark circles under his eyes and an unkempt beard, exuding an air of utter defeat. I asked him, "Do you want my help?" Surprisingly, he shook his head. He told me, Wei, I've been suffering from depression. I haven't slept well in months. I now understand the pain you went through. This is my karma. I struggled to suppress a smile and said, "How can this be karma? It's a blessing. Think about it. In your previous life, you regretted not being able to save Tang Xiaoxiao until your death. Even though you were successful and had me by your side, you were still unhappy. Now, fate has given you a chance to start over. Even though you've lost everything, you've resolved your past regrets. That should be enough. Fate has been more than fair to you. People should not be too greedy. Gaining something often means losing something else. You can't have it all." That was the last time I saw Shen Xingchuan. 3 months later, on the night Shen's company declared bankruptcy, Shen Xingchuan, drunk and overwhelmed by depression, drowned in his bathtub. By the time he was found, it was too late. Indeed, what goes around comes around. When Qingyi learned about this while massaging my back, he said, "My father used to tell me, a person with poor character cannot go far." I turned over and couldn't help asking, "Then how far do you think we can go?" Qingyi thought seriously for a moment and replied, "Given our characters, 100 years wouldn't be too much. right, I wholeheartedly agreed. Of course, it's not too much. And it wouldn't be too much for your husband to want a good meal, right? Chingy looked at me intently, his eyes burning with intensity, reflecting my image like the most exquisite rose in the world. They say loving someone is like tending to a flower. Chingy cherished me, placing me at the very top of his heart, unwilling for me to suffer the slightest hardship. This only made me strive to be better. Chingy gave me everything I hadn't received in 2 lifetimes. I wrapped my arms around his neck, kissed him on the lips, and said, not too much at all, and, after my death, Xingyan burned a lot of money for me every year. This led me to develop a habit of lavish spending in the underworld. Then suddenly one day, he stopped. I waited and tried to enter his dreams multiple times to no avail, finally confirming that he had forgotten about this matter. Having never thought to save money before, I accrued a massive debt in the underworld to maintain my usual lifestyle. In a fit of anger, I shockingly came back to life. 01. Of course, I didn't actually come back to life. Rather, the king of hell, fearing I wouldn't be able to repay the debt, made an exception to let me return briefly. So, calling on Oxhead and Horseface, they crafted for me a body identical to my previous one. Having not been human for several years, suddenly having a physical form again felt quite odd. Frantically, I rushed to the human world straight to Xingyan's villa. However, I was stopped by the security guards. They told me that a Xing family lived here, but no one named Xingyan. Perhaps seeing my disheveled and pitiful state, they sympathetically gave me a business card and suggested I call the person listed on it. It took some effort to track down that person. The place I ended up at was a 5-star hotel, seemingly hosting an engagement ceremony, but when I saw the man on the poster at the entrance, I froze. Xingyan was getting engaged to someone else. Well, it made sense. I had been dead for 5 years, and him moving on was normal, but even so, he shouldn't have forgotten to send me money. He had no idea how expensive things were in the underworld. His family ran a large business. Surely they could spare a little to support my afterlife extravagance. I remembered how I had died, trembling in pain in his arms. As Xingyan wept uncontrollably, I mustered all my strength to utter my last words. Remember to burn more money for me each year. Considering I died because of you, I was an orphan and had dated Xingyan for years without marrying. I was genuinely afraid of being penniless after death. Only after seeing him nod did I close my eyes in peace. Now, just a few years later, has he forgotten the dead because of his new love? Furious, I wanted to confront Xingyan when suddenly a clear male voice came from behind me. Are you looking for me? 02. I turned around and saw a young man in his 20s, tall and handsome, and somewhat familiar looking. Seeing that I didn't respond, he continued, Uncle Chen called, saying you went to the Xings looking for me. Only then did I realize that he was probably the person on the business card. I scratched my head sheepishly, looking at the poster of Xingyan, and said, yes, but I've already found who I was looking for. You're talking about my uncle. I was stunned. Xingyan is your uncle? Yes, he's quite busy today. I'll take you inside, and he can meet you after he's done. He then led me inside. What's your name? Xing Lai. And you? Without thinking, I blurted out, Song Tao. I'm not sure if it was my imagination, but upon hearing my name, Xing Lai stiffened for a moment before quickly returning to normal. He took me to a private room on the 2nd floor, away from the crowd in the main hall. The room's floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the entire ceremony stage. After the host's speech, the bride and groom, under everyone's gaze, slowly made their entrance. There, after 5 years, I saw Xingyan again. He was nearly 30 now, time leaving no trace on his face, dressed in a well-tailored black suit, made him look even more mature and charming. If I remember correctly, his fiancée by his side is the daughter of the Shen family. Initially, both families wanted them to marry, but Xingyan insisted on being with me, a real-life Cinderella. This even caused the old man of the Xing family to be hospitalized in anger. Unexpectedly, after 5 years, Xingyan ended up with Shening. Knowing this would happen, why bother in the first place? At the peak of the atmosphere, someone in the crowd shouted, kiss. I leaned against the glass window, watching the couple in the center of the crowd, and couldn't help but hold my breath. On the way here, I had considered this possibility, but seeing it with my own eyes still made my heart ache terribly. Reason told me I shouldn't feel this way. Xingyan has the right to embrace a new life. I came back just wanting him to spend money on me. What am I really doing? Sensing something was off, Xing Lai leaned over and saw me crying, immediately at a loss. What's wrong with you? If there's something to say, please don't cry first. I didn't want to cry either. I don't know why I couldn't control my emotions. Helplessly, I forced a smile and said, I'm fine, just too moved. Really? Is that really it? Xinglai seemed skeptical. I nodded. Your uncle and your aunt are so well matched. I haven't seen such a festive atmosphere in a long time. I was moved to tears by accident. Xinglai paused, then asked. By the way, I haven't asked you yet. What do you need from my uncle? By then, Xingyan and Shining began to toast the guests. I watched the scene, my hand unconsciously tapping on the glass of the window. Actually, it's nothing special. I just wanted to ask him a few questions. I think my uncle won't be free for a while. Why don't you tell me? And I'll pass it on. I turned around, looked at Xinglai with an evasive gaze, and asked, You don't want me to meet your uncle, do you? Xinglai didn't expect me to be so direct. He smiled awkwardly and explained, Not exactly. It's just that today is his engagement day after all. It's best not to disturb him. I guessed Xinglai probably knew something, but on second thought, he was right, coming from the underworld. I shouldn't disturb Xingyan on such a joyous day to ask why he hasn't offered me paper money. I should have been more considerate. Sorry for the disturbance. I left those words and quickly exited the room. As I reached the hotel entrance, Xinglai followed me out. You haven't had your meal. Why leave so soon? I'm not trying to rush you away. Don't misunderstand. Looking at this boy who couldn't even hide his thoughts, I found it quite amusing and decided to tease him. I actually don't need to eat, to which Xinglai replied, Then where do you live? I can arrange a hotel for you. I was a bit lost following his train of thought, but he raised a good question. Where should I stay tonight? Lord Yama only gave me 3 days, and if things don't work out with Xingyan, I might have to rely on Xinglai here. I don't want to stay in a hotel. Can I stay at your place? I don't know why Xingyan gave that villa to Xinglai, but I really wanted to go back and see. The most loving years of our lives were spent there. Xinglai was clearly frightened. What on earth do you want? He asked. Xinglai, you know me, right? Are you afraid that I'll ruin your uncle's engagement? If that's the case, you should keep a closer eye on me, I countered. I wasn't sure what Xinglai was thinking, but he indeed brought me back to the villa. Everything here remained much the same. The painting I had done with my own hands still hung in its original place, for some reason. I suddenly remembered that Xingyan once mentioned that a friend of his really liked my painting. I thought his friend had good taste, so I decided to personally paint a landscape for him, but I died before I could finish the painting. Ever since then, in the underworld, I've regretted not finishing that painting sooner. Now that I've finally come back, I want to finish what I started. I confidently headed to the room at the far south end of the second floor. Just as I was about to turn the doorknob, Xinglai immediately stopped me. You can sleep anywhere but this room. I just want to take a look. Even looking is not allowed. My uncle doesn't let anyone touch anything in there, including me. He won't know if you don't tell him. It's not allowed, period. Xinglai was very firm this time. Fearing I would persist with the room, he pulled me away. No matter how I tried to explain, he wouldn't budge. He really infuriated me. Why are you so stubborn? Only if my uncle agrees. But you don't want me to see your uncle, do you? Who knows what you're really up to? Xinglai, you really Before I could finish, a sudden ring of the doorbell cut me off. Standing by the door, I opened it irritably. Who is it? But what I saw was Xingyan's face. Our eyes met. In that moment, time seemed to freeze. Xingyan stared at me, motionless. His eyes held too many emotions for me to discern. Xinglai was the first to recover, pulling me behind him and asking with a guilty conscience, Uncle, what brings you here? Xingyan was aggressive as soon as he spoke. Tell me, who is she? By then, Xinglai had calmed down. What do you think, Uncle? Xingyan seemed to realize something, staggering a few steps back. If it's not her, why does she look so much like her? Hearing this, Xinglai couldn't help but glance at me. If I remember correctly, we had never met before, but I'm sure Xinglai knew about me, just then. As Xinglai let his guard down, Xingyan quickly rushed over to me and grabbed my wrist. Xinglai tried to stop him but was kicked out the door by Xingyan. With a bang, the door closed again. Now, it was just me and Xingyan in the room. After a brief silence, Xingyan looked me over again. What's your name? He asked. I lowered my eyelids to avoid his gaze and replied, My name is Jiang Wan. He now had a new life. I shouldn't disturb it, since I would be leaving soon anyway. I might as well keep it from him, Xingyan scoffed. Even the voice is exactly the same. Tell me, who sent you? I looked up in surprise. realizing that he only saw me as someone who resembled Song Tao. That was probably for the best. Fearing he might detect something off, I chose to remain silent. However, the more Xing Yan stared at me, the more agitated he became. Gripping my shoulders, he demanded, "Who allowed you to transform into her likeness? What exactly are you after? Answer me." He pushed me against the wall, my back throbbing from the impact, yet I couldn't escape his grasp. Just then, Xing Lai, who had just climbed through the window, witnessed the scene. He pulled Xing Yan away, fuming. "The engagement party isn't even over, and here you are, abandoning your fiancé to come here. What exactly were you hoping for? Wasn't it you who personally sent that person to the crematorium?" Xing Yan appeared as if he had heard something terrifying. His body trembled slightly, and he no longer dared to look at me. Quickly fleeing the villa, watching his retreating figure, a wave of sorrow washed over me. After Xing Yan left, Xing Lai's tone was no longer as polite as before. "Why are you impersonating Song Tao?" he asked harshly. I steadied my emotions, met his gaze squarely, and countered, "How can you be so sure that I'm impersonating?" We locked eyes for a moment before he looked away first. "I don't care whether you're impersonating or not. Just don't try to approach my uncle again. He has had a tough time in recent years, barely recovering from a serious illness. I'm begging you, if it's money, a house, or a car you want, I can give it to you. Just please leave my uncle alone." I caught my breath. When did he fall ill? About 2 years ago. It was on and off, and he was sick for nearly a year. During that time, Shining took care of him, and they decided to get engaged after he recovered, so that was it. Xing Yan hadn't burned offerings for me because he was ill. Honestly, I also blame myself for not being more prepared, always thinking about how I didn't enjoy life enough when I was alive, and once dead, I would splurge to my heart's content, buying villas and luxury cars without a second thought, and even keeping a bunch of handsome servants, having no business sense, yet still trying to get involved, not even understanding how to deal with people, let alone the resentful spirits in the underworld. By the time I realized things were going downhill, I was already trapped. Now that Xing Lai had brought it up, I wasn't going to be polite. When I asked for a significant amount of underworld currency, his expression looked as if he had seen a ghost. Well, wasn't I a ghost? If it weren't for the useless offerings I burnt for myself, I would have asked for real money. Nevertheless, Xing Lai did as I requested. 2 hours later, he returned with a trunk full of underworld money. He dumped the money on the ground in the yard, then without looking up, he asked, "You should at least tell me who these are for, right? Otherwise, the intended recipient won't receive them." "Song Tao," I said calmly, stating my own name. Xing Lai stood up, shock apparent in his eyes. "You can't possibly be the real Song Tao." Sitting on the bench, watching the flickering flames, I smiled. "Exactly, didn't I already tell you?" Xing Lai crouched beside me, his face full of confusion. "So, are you dead or not? What do you think? Then why didn't you tell my uncle just now? Why are you confused again? You want him to be happy. And of course, so do I." Xing Lai hugged his knees, burying her face in the crook of her arm. Her voice sounded muffled. "I'm sorry for missing you like that." I looked at the person beside me who seemed to be blaming himself, lifted my hand to ruffle his hair, and said in a light-hearted manner, "What are you thinking about? I should actually thank you for burning all that money for me. When I return to the underworld and repay my debts, let's see who dares to look down on me." Xing Lai had almost burned through all the paper money he bought. "Maybe the king of hell will summon me back earlier once he receives the money." After a moment's thought, I spoke up, "Can you tell me what's been happening with Xing Yan these past few years?" But before Xing Lai could reply, a deep voice suddenly sounded from behind. "Why don't you ask me directly?" Xing Lai and I both stood up and turned around, only to find Xing Yan, who had returned, under the streetlight. His gaze was fixed on me. I didn't know how much he had heard, and instinctively I moved behind Xing Lai. Xing Lai sensed my intention and shifted slightly, but didn't stop me. Seeing this, a pained expression crossed Xing Yan's eyes. "Who allowed you to burn paper money at my villa?" "I'm sorry, uncle," Xing Lai began to explain, but Xing Yan brushed past him and approached me. Though he was looking at me, his words were meant for Xing Lai. "Chen just sent a message. Your best friend was hit by a car and is now in the hospital." Upon hearing this, Xing Lai immediately reached for his phone in his pocket, found the number, and dialed, but there was no answer. He hurriedly prepared to leave but then suddenly remembered I was still there. I gave him a reassuring smile. "Go and see him, don't worry about me." With a conflicted look, Xing Lai glanced at Xing Yan, thought for a moment, and finally left with a plea, "Uncle, don't drive her away." As soon as Xinglai left, Xingyan grabbed me and pulled me inside the house. The moment the door closed, he eagerly began tugging at my clothes. I was frightened by this aggressive side of Xingyan, desperately covering my neckline, pleading with him, "Don't do this, Xingyan, I'm scared," but it was as if he couldn't hear me, easily pinning my hands above my head, then ripping open my neckline to reveal a large expanse of my collarbone. The air chilled the exposed skin, causing me to shudder involuntarily. I tried to struggle, but Xingyan suddenly stopped. His gaze finally settled on a red mole below my collarbone. Was he verifying if I was really Song Tao? I thought annoyedly. The guardians of the underworld are too meticulous. Xingyan used to love kissing me there, saying it was sexy. I didn't expect him to remember. His warm fingertips trailed across my skin, and almost instantly, Xingyan's eyes reddened. "Ah Tao, it's you, it really is you." His face was filled with the joy of regaining something precious. Trembling as he pulled me into his embrace, "My Ah Tao is back, my Ah Tao is back," he murmured repeatedly, sending shivers through my heart. "Xingyan, please stop, I will have to leave soon." "Really?" After a moment, Xingyan looked up. "Leave? Go where?" "Back to where I came from, of course. You know better than anyone that it's impossible for me to still be alive." Hearing my words, Xingyan's emotions, which had just settled, erupted again. "So what if you are a ghost? I still want to keep you by my side." He said this and then picked me up and carried me upstairs. "Xingyan, put me down." I kept pounding on his body, yelling anxiously, "Xingyan, have you forgotten what day it is today? Your fiancé is waiting for you at home, you shouldn't be here." Xingyan stopped in his tracks. "So, the figure I saw at the hotel today was indeed you?" "That's not the point." He looked down at me, a bitter smile on his lips. "Don't worry. I'm just taking you to change your clothes." I didn't expect that Xingyan had kept all my belongings from before. He handed me a brand new suit. "Sorry, I haven't updated these in 2 years. They're all old styles. You'll just have to wear this." Suddenly, I remembered my childhood in the orphanage, wearing second-hand clothes collected from elsewhere. Other kids dreamed of growing up to do great things, but my dream was just to have a beautiful dress. Later, when I was with Xingyan, I told him this story as a joke. From then on, every season change, he would bring home the latest clothes for me to choose from. Taking the clothes from his hand, I remembered the 2 years he mentioned. I couldn't help but ask, "Why did you get sick? You promised me you'd take care of yourself." Xingyan leaned against the cupboard door, focusing intently on me. "Can't I get sick from missing you?" I sighed. "I'm not joking." Xingyan, serious, replied, "Neither am I." I asked again, "Did Xinglai's brother really have a car accident?" Xingyan straightforwardly said. I lied to him. "You." Xingyan pulled me into his arms, his tone somewhat aggrieved. "You didn't come back just to talk about this, did you?" Indeed, before seeing him, I had a lot of things I wanted to tell him, but upon seeing him, I suddenly felt that many things didn't need to be said. "Go back. Shening is waiting for you. Don't let me ruin your relationship." Suddenly, Xingyan became stubborn, holding me tight and refusing to let go. "No, I won't go back. There's no real feeling between her and me," he said, lowering his head to try to kiss me. I was instantly furious, pushing him away. "Xingyan, how could you do this? If you chose to get engaged to her, even if you don't like her, you should remain loyal." Xingyan let go of me, a harsh expression crossing his face. "Why do you think I got engaged to her? Song Tao, do you still remember how you died?" "I do remember how I died. 5 years ago, to get back at Xingyan, a business rival hired kidnappers to abduct me. They demanded 50 million. At that time, the Xing family, to keep Xingyan and me apart, restricted his finances tightly. To gather enough money to save me, Xingyan nearly died in front of his grandfather. 3 days later, he arrived with the money. He thought he could save me, but in front of Xingyan, the kidnapper slit my throat. Xingyan held me as he cried his heart out. I died in his arms, not knowing whether those kidnappers were ever caught. If Xingyan says so, could there be more to my death? What are you trying to say? Xingyan lit a cigarette in front of me and slowly began to speak. After the kidnappers were caught, they immediately confessed to the crime, but I could never understand why they didn't just take the money and run. Why go to such lengths? Over the years, I've been investigating secretly. A year ago, I discovered that Shening had secretly contacted the family of the kidnappers. My engagement to her was only to get closer to her and gather more evidence to avenge you. I remember they kidnapped me, repeatedly claiming they were instructed by Xingyan's enemies. Could there really be someone so foolish as to expose their own family like that, or did they never intend to let me live from the start? I don't know, and I don't have the time to find out. I had no dealings with Shining. I barely even saw her face. I can't think of any reason why she would want to harm me. No, all I want is for Xingyan to be well. I took the cigarette from his fingers and decisively snuffed it out. This is all just your speculation. What if it wasn't her doing? It's been so long. It won't be easy to uncover the truth. Xingyan watched my swift actions, momentarily lost in thought. I always wanted him to smoke less. Every time he lit up, I would put it out. After a few times, he would give in, sometimes playfully kissing me with his smoke-flavored lips. I had no way to counter him, so I decided to fight fire with fire. After eating durian, I insisted on kissing him. Unexpectedly, he not only didn't mind, but almost kissed me breathless. Remembering all these things made me even sadder. I secretly wiped away a tear, perhaps sensing my movement. Xingyan came back to his senses. Whether it is true or not, the day will come when the truth will out. I hesitated, then said, if, and I mean if, it has nothing to do with her, then Yan, you should be with her. Xingyan looked at me and asked coldly, who are you to make decisions for me? That night, we parted on bad terms. I thought I would wake up back in the underworld. But I was still in the villa. Xingyan refused to go back last night, so I sent him to the guest room. In the morning, I found that he had already made breakfast. I looked around and shamelessly took a seat at the dining table. To ease the awkwardness, I casually asked, didn't Xinglai come back last night? As Xingyan was about to push a sandwich towards me, he paused upon hearing my question. Are you that concerned about him? I pulled the half-pushed sandwich in front of me and smiled, saying, isn't he your nephew? It's only normal for me to show some concern on your behalf, right? Unsaid yet evident, Xingyan's culinary skills had indeed improved. Not a blood relative. What? He was a child adopted by my father. I remembered. Xingyan once told me that he had an older brother who passed away young due to illness. Later, overwhelmed by grief, the old master of the Xing family adopted another child from elsewhere to alleviate his longing. In that sense, Xinglai and I were both orphans. However, he was much luckier than me. Just as I was thinking, Xinglai called. Seeing me craning my neck, Xingyan turned on the speakerphone. I thought Xinglai was going to confront Xingyan about deceiving him the night before, but instead, it turned out that the old master of the Xing family had been hospitalized. After learning that Xingyan had left Shining at the engagement banquet the day before, the old man had been so angry that he fell ill. Xingyan had to rush to the hospital immediately. Before leaving, he asked me to wait for him at home, promising he would be back soon. I nodded in agreement, and 5 minutes later, the doorbell rang. Thinking that Xingyan had forgotten something, I quickly opened the door, only to find Shining standing outside. He really has someone else, Shining blurted out, intending to barge in, but when she saw my face clearly, she shuddered in fright, her voice breaking. Ah. Aren't you supposed to be dead? Are you a ghost? With my arms crossed, I slowly approached her, a slight smirk on my lips. Why don't you guess if I'm a person or a ghost? Ah. Holding her head, Shining screamed hysterically, Ghost, ghost, don't come any closer, help. Watching her stumbling figure running away, I couldn't help but wonder, why was Shining so afraid of me? I thought about it for a moment, then decided not to bother with this question anymore. I strutted into the room that Xinglai had kept me out of the day before. Pushing open the door, I found it filled with things I had used before. Xingyan had arranged everything neatly, and I quickly found the unfinished landscape painting. With nothing else to do, I spread out the paper and started sketching with ink and brush. It wasn't until sunset that I finally completed the painting. I stretched lazily, feeling a sense of accomplishment. After carefully restoring the room to its original state, I opened the door, but the next second, everything went dark as a sack was thrown over my head. Then I was hoisted onto someone's shoulder. This feeling was too familiar, unforgettable no matter what, but this time, who was kidnapping me? As I was jostled to the point of nausea, the person finally dumped me into a car. I sighed inwardly, not expecting to leave in such a manner. I didn't even have time to leave a note for Xingyan. He would surely worry if he returned and didn't find me. The car drove for about half an hour before stopping. I had no idea of the direction, so I couldn't estimate our location. When the light finally came back, I found myself in a closed room, and there was Shining, the person who had kidnapped me, wearing a black leather jacket, her face clouded with gloom. Far from her usual gentle and gracious image, she pinched my chin. scrutinizing my features. So, you're not a ghost, right? I looked at her calmly. Without responding, Shining suddenly burst into laughter. With a confident tone, she declared, if you were really a ghost, you wouldn't have been caught by me in such a sorry state. But in the next second, her smile faded, and she tightened her grip, her sharp nails digging into my skin. Who exactly are you? I've searched all day and found nothing about you, I responded with a nonchalant expression. So, Miss Shin caught me just to find out who I am. Shining scrutinized me with contempt and arrogantly said, it doesn't matter if you don't tell me, whether you are her or not. If I could kill you once, I can kill you again. Her words struck me like a bolt of lightning. This meant that Xing Yan's guess was right. My previous death was indeed orchestrated by Shining. Why? I have no grudges against you. Why did you harm me? No grudges. Shining laughed as if she had heard the joke of the century. She let go of me and then seemingly pulled out a knife from nowhere. The sharp blade traced my face, her eyes filled with deep hatred. Because you are the shame of my life. Unfazed, I retorted. I didn't realize I had such influence. If I'm not mistaken, we only met today, right? Shining glared at me coldly. The problem is that you have a face identical to Song Tao's. Just one glimpse of your silhouette was enough for him to abandon me in front of so many people, letting everyone laugh at me. I lowered my head and sighed. I was wrong yesterday. I accept whatever you do to me, but Song Tao hasn't wronged you. He and Xing Yan are each other's first love. They being together hasn't hurt anyone. What do you know? Shining suddenly shouted. I fell for him when I was 15. Everyone around me knew that we were meant to marry, but he chose you, a poor girl who had nothing, over an arranged marriage between the Sheng and Shin families. You wouldn't understand how those people mocked me. They said I wasn't capable enough to keep Xing Yan's heart, that I lost to someone inferior to me in every way. How could I accept that? I spoke with difficulty. So you had her killed? Yes, as long as she was gone, Xing Yan would be with me. You saw our engagement party. He organized it himself. If you hadn't suddenly appeared, we would have been married and happy forever. So, only if you disappear again, will Xing Yan fall in love with me once more. As Shining spoke, she slowly raised the dagger in her hand, but just then, one of her men rushed in. Boss, it looks like we've been spotted. Fearing exposure, Shining had no choice but to move me to another location. The car jolted all the way to an abandoned factory, but soon she realized they were exposed again. Cars were approaching from all directions. I glanced down at the safety amulet on my wrist, which I guessed had a tracker. Xing Yan must have put it on me in the morning when he left, probably fearing I might sneak away, just in case. I never thought it would come into play here. However, Shining quickly regained her composure, because she learned that the approaching group was not the police. She pulled me over and held the knife to my neck, confidently asserting, as long as I have you, I can certainly make my escape. I smiled. Normally that would be true, but today she was mistaken. Outside the factory, the roar of a car engine sounded. I knew the moment had come, and deliberately provoked Shining with my words. Do you think it's Xing Yan coming? Do you think he will still love you after seeing this scene? Shining, you are truly pitiable. You have everything one could want, living a life most can't imagine. Yet you chase after a heart that isn't yours. You are nothing but a foolish pig, a pitiful creature, a complete joke. Shut up. Xing Ying's face twisted in anger at my words. She viciously pushed the knife closer to my neck. Seizing the moment, I leaned into the sharp blade, using her force against her. Determined not to die so easily, I jerked my neck back and forth across the blade until intense pain surged. Shining froze as she realized what I was doing, watching as blood spurted out, splashing onto her face and body. Ah! Shining screamed, her hand shaking uncontrollably with the knife. As the blood flowed more freely, Shining completely lost it and pushed me away in a frenzy. Xing Yan and Xing Lai entered and witnessed the scene. Ah Tao! Xing Yan rushed over to catch me as I nearly fell, his eyes filled with terror. No, it can't be. He desperately pressed his hands over my wound, trying to slow the bleeding. Ah Tao! Hang in there, I'm taking you to the hospital. I reached out to grasp his arm and said, it's no use. I was meant to leave anyway, sooner or later. Xing Yan looked at me, tears falling heavily. Why make me go through losing you twice? Ah Yan, I'm sorry. I tried to lift my hand to wipe his tears, but my strength failed halfway. Xing Yan quickly grasped my falling hand, pressing it against his cheek. Ah Tao, don't leave me. I was finding it hard to breathe now, needing to hurry and settle my affairs. Ah Yan, let go of everything and live well, and don't forget to burn paper money for me. Things are expensive in the underworld. The year you were sick, I had a really tough time down there. Then, I turned my head toward Xinlai, who had restrained Shining, and said weakly, take good care of your uncle, or I won't rest even as a ghost. Xinlai's eyes were red. He opened his mouth to speak but ultimately just nodded. I caressed Xingyan's face. My eyes filled with longing and my heart full of reluctance. The servants in the underworld are handsome, but none compare to even half of Xingyan. Oh well, such is this life. Everything else must wait for another life. The sound of sirens grew louder in my ears. I smiled knowingly and slowly closed my eyes. After returning to the underworld, I dismissed all the male servants. They were good-looking but useless, only good at spending money. I began to live frugally, saving all the extra money I had. Normally, after death, everyone has to queue in the underworld waiting to be reborn. I have no idea when it will be my turn. I can no longer afford to squander my time as I once did. Lately, a sense of unease has been clouding my mind, affecting my sleep and appetite, filling my days with worry. That was until one day, Xinlai sent me a letter. He informed me that Xingyan had properly buried my body. Shining was sentenced to death, and both he and Xingyan attended the trial. He assured me not to worry about Xingyan, who has been busy with taking a new company public. Holding his letter, I read it over and over, finally feeling a weight lift off my chest. At the same time, that unease vanished like smoke. I completely trusted Xinlai's words and even looked forward to his next letter. Sure enough, a few days later, he wrote to me again. This time, he mentioned my painting. 5 years ago, I saw a painting in my uncle's office that I really liked, so I nagged him to introduce me to the artist. He refused, saying at most he could have the artist paint another one for me. I agreed, but waited a long time without ever seeing the painting, and I couldn't help asking him about it several times. My uncle always found excuses, and I complained about him behind his back. Today, I received a painting signed by Song Tao, and I feel I owe my uncle an apology, but I can't tell him. I can only secretly share this with you, and also, I really like your painting. It turns out that Xingyan's friend was Xinlai. Truly, the connections between people are mysterious. He helped me, and I could return his kindness in this way. That night, I tried to enter Xinlai's dream and succeeded, but he didn't seem happy to see me. I poked his sturdy arm and asked, "What's wrong? You seem unhappy to see me. Is your uncle not doing well?" Xinlai waved his hands frantically. "Not at all. It's just what? My uncle is busy dating Miss Shi from the Yi family, and I was worried you'd be jealous." I put my hands on my hips, indignantly saying, I'm not that petty. If I could enter Xingyan's dream, I would definitely go and bless him." Xinlai quickly grabbed me. "Please don't. Isn't my uncle hurt enough?" I then asked, "What's this Miss Shi like?" Without a second thought, Xinlai said, "Prettier than you." I punched him. "I'm not asking about looks. Look at Shining. Beautiful but with a heart of a snake. When choosing a partner, character is what's most important. Do you understand?" Xinlai, holding his head, said pitifully, "I understand. Just don't bother my uncle anymore. He's doing well now." I waved my hand irritably. "Fine, I won't come anymore." Xinlai hurriedly explained, "That's not what I meant. You can come see me." Looking at his earnest face, I tried to smile lightly. "I won't come anymore. Take care." I always thought I was different from other ghosts. They could enter other people's dreams, but I never could. I tried to enter Xingyan's dream several times but always failed. Even the king of hell couldn't explain why. Eventually, I just gave up. But now, I've come to realize, once dead, one should just pass on peacefully and never disturb the living. With this thought, I smiled and said goodbye to Xinlai. Yet, he stubbornly chased after me, refusing to stop. "I was just joking earlier. You just want to know about my uncle, right? Next time you come, I'll tell you about him and Miss Shi, or anything else you want to hear. I'm willing to share." "Song Tao, you promised now. You can't go back on your word. I'll be waiting for you. You said the underworld is expensive, right? I can burn a lot of paper money for you."